Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed viewers, prepare to be captivated. Today, we invite you into the enigmatic world of the Unspoken Call. Imagine a high-powered CEO whose meticulously structured life is shattered by a single, innocent plea. Dottie, wait! This isn't just a chance encounter. It's the beginning of a thrilling dive into a forgotten past, a web of corporate intrigue, and the rediscovery of a family he never knew existed. What secrets lie hidden in the CEO's memory? Who are these mysterious children, and what forces are at play behind their sudden appearance? Before we unveil this gripping tale of love, betrayal, and unexpected legacies, we urge you, hit that subscribe button and join us on a journey where every truth uncovered leads to a deeper mystery. The amber glow of a late afternoon sun painted the relentless urban landscape, catching the chrome gleam of skyscrapers that pierced the Hanoi sky like ambition given form. Inside a sleek obsidian-black Mercedes Maybach, Liam Thorne, CEO of Thorne Tech, a titan in the global technology arena, remained as unyielding and polished as the polished leather seats beneath him. At 35, Liam embodied the apex predator of the corporate jungle, sharp-suited, impeccably groomed, with eyes the color of forged steel that betrayed neither emotion nor weakness. His life was a meticulously crafted algorithm of success, devoid of extraneous variables. Family, a distant, almost theoretical concept. Personal connections, merely strategic alliances. His kingdom was built on logic, data, and an almost chilling detachment. Today, his thoughts were a complex tapestry of upcoming mergers, market projections, and the subtle art of eliminating competition. The hum of the engine was a familiar lullaby to his focused mind, the urban symphony of honking horns and distant chatter reduced to a dull murmur outside his triple-glazed sanctuary. He was a man accustomed to silence, a profound, self-imposed quiet that echoed the stillness within his own heart. Then, it struck. A sound, piercing and impossibly clear, tore through the calculated tranquility of his existence. "Dottie, wait!" Liam Thorne, a man whose pulse rarely wavered under pressure, jolted. His hand instinctively tightened on the armrest, knuckles turning white. He swiveled his head, his gaze sweeping the rear window, an almost predatory sharpness in his eyes. There, against the backdrop of the blurring cityscape, were two tiny figures, vibrant specks of color against the asphalt canvas. One, a flash of fiery red, the other, a delicate blush of pink, their short legs pumping with an astonishing, desperate energy. They were children, impossibly young, their faces etched with a fierce determination that seemed utterly out of place on such innocent visages. "Dottie!" The cry came again, clearer this time, laced with an urgency that resonated deep within a part of Liam he hadn't known existed. It was a raw, unfiltered sound, a primal summons that bypassed his analytical mind and struck directly at something forgotten, something buried. He blinked, the perfectly tailored facade of the CEO momentarily cracking. Are you talking to me?" he murmured, the words feeling foreign, awkward on his tongue. The question was less for the outside world and more for himself, a desperate attempt to reconcile the impossible image with his rigidly defined reality. A chilling sense of déjà vu, faint and fleeting, brushed against his consciousness. A whisper of sunlight, a forgotten melody, a warmth that had long since turned to ash. He dismissed it instantly, a flicker of irritation replacing the momentary confusion. This was absurd. He had no children, no connections that would warrant such a fervent, possessive cry. His driver, a stoic man named Kian, who had served Liam for years, glanced in the rearview mirror, a flicker of concern crossing his usually impassive face. "Sir, should I pull over?"
"Liam."
his mind still reeling, didn't answer immediately. He was transfixed by the sight of the two girls, their tiny lungs working overtime, their faces scarlet, yet their eyes fixed solely on his car, on him. It was a gaze so pure, so yearning, it felt like an accusation. They ran not with childish playfulness, but with the frantic desperation of someone about to lose something precious. And then, as if emerging from the shimmering heat haze, another figure appeared. A woman. She wasn't running, but walking with an unnerving grace, her eyes, sharp, intelligent, and carrying a depth that seemed to mirror the very sky, were locked onto Liam. There was a quiet intensity about her, a subtle power that radiated even from a distance. Her smile, when it came, was not one of warmth, but of an almost knowing triumph, tinged with an inexplicable melancholy. It was a smile that promised answers, yet hinted at a multitude of buried secrets. A sense of foreboding, cold and sharp, coiled in Liam's gut. This was no random encounter. This was a convergence, a collision of worlds. "Pull over, Kian," Liam commanded, his voice now steady, though a strange current of unease ran beneath it. The perfectly manicured life he had built, stone by meticulous stone, suddenly felt as fragile as a house of cards in a hurricane. He watched as the woman's gaze seemed to pierce through the tinted glass, an unspoken message passing between them, a silent challenge. He didn't know her. He was certain he didn't. Yet a ghost of recognition, a phantom ache in his memory, persisted. This wasn't just about two little girls. It was about the past, clawing its way back to reclaim him, to expose the carefully constructed facade of Liam Thorne. The silence in his life, once his fortress, now felt like a suffocating void, waiting to be filled by the cacophony of an unforeseen truth. This was not a chance encounter. It was an echo from a life he had somehow, inexplicably forgotten. And the woman's smile, so serene yet so unsettling, was the first key to unlocking that forgotten world. The Maybach pulled to a silent halt, its obsidian gleam reflecting the frantic energy of the city. Liam Thorne exited the vehicle with a practiced smoothness, a man accustomed to stepping out of luxury cars into a world that bent to his will. Yet, this time, his movements carried an almost imperceptible tremor, a dissonant note in his usually flawless composure. The cool evening air, usually a balm against the day's corporate heat, felt suddenly charged, heavy with unspoken truths. The two little girls, Lily and Daisy, had already reached the car, their small hands pressing against the tinted windows, their breath misting the glass. As Liam stepped out, they launched themselves at him with the force of miniature tidal waves, their small arms wrapping around his legs in an embrace that was both utterly foreign and strangely grounding. Liam stood frozen, a statue of bewildered granite. This physical contact, this raw, unfiltered affection, was an alien language to him. He was a man whose personal space was guarded by layers of steel and silence, yet these two fragile beings had breached his defenses effortlessly, their innocent grip a shocking anchor in the maelstrom of his thoughts. Then Elena arrived. Her footsteps on the pavement were soft, almost unheard, yet her presence resonated with an undeniable force. She stood before him, a study in calm defiance. Her eyes, the color of twilight, held a knowing depth that sent a shiver down Liam's spine, a recognition that felt both impossibly distant and terrifyingly close. She was dressed simply, yet with an understated elegance. A dark, flowing dress that seemed to absorb the fading light, accentuating her slender frame, A faint, almost imperceptible scar traced the delicate curve of her left eyebrow, a tiny imperfection that somehow made her more captivating, a subtle hint of a story untold. "Liam Thorne," she stated, her voice a low, melodic murmur, devoid of accusation, yet thick with an unspoken history. It wasn't a question, but a pronouncement, as if his name itself held a forgotten weight in her mouth. "I am Elena Petrov, and, as I said, Lily and Daisy are your daughters." The words hung in the air between them, a thunderclap in the urban quiet. Liam felt a cold, hard knot form in his stomach. "My daughters?" he scoffed, the sound sharp, laced with a familiar, defensive edge. "Ms. Petrov, I assure you, you are mistaken. I have never been married. I have no children." His eyes, usually unwavering, darted towards the two little girls still clinging to him, their innocent faces tilted upwards, watching this surreal exchange with wide, trusting eyes. The stark contrast between his denial and their profound certainty was a chasm he couldn't bridge. Elena's smile, that same enigmatic curve that was less about amusement and more about the weight of truth, deepened. "Perhaps," she said, her voice softer, yet imbued with an unnerving conviction, "it's not a matter of what you remember, Liam, but what you have forgotten." She extended a hand, not to him, but towards a quaint, unassuming cafe tucked away from the main thoroughfare, its warm, inviting glow a stark contrast to the cold, impersonal world Liam inhabited. "Let's talk somewhere more private. This is not a conversation for the streets." Liam hesitated. Every fiber of his being screamed to dismiss her, to get back into his car, to retreat into the sterile efficiency of his life. But the desperate grip of Lily and Daisy on his legs, the haunting certainty in Elena's eyes, and that fleeting, unsettling sense of a shattered memory compelled him forward. He found himself walking towards the cafe, not because he wanted to, but because an invisible tether forged in a forgotten past seemed to pull him. Inside, the cafe was a cocoon of warmth and hushed conversations. The aroma of roasted coffee and old books mingled in the air, a scent that oddly triggered another fleeting, ungraspable memory. Elena led them to a secluded booth in the corner, its warm velvet seats offering a semblance of privacy. Lily and Daisy, once released from Liam's legs, immediately gravitated towards Elena, settling on either side of her, their small hands instinctively reaching for hers. They were her satellites, revolving around her steady presence, yet their eyes would continually drift back to Liam, a silent, hopeful appeal in their gaze. Elena ordered 3 glasses of milk for the girls and 2 espressos for herself and Liam. The domesticity of the act, the simple, caring gesture, felt profoundly out of place in Liam's world. He watched her, a woman whose every movement spoke of resilience and a quiet strength. There was a weariness etched around her eyes, a faint shadow that hinted at battles fought and sacrifices made. Yet, beneath it all, a fierce determination burned. When the drinks arrived, Elena took a calming sip of her espresso, her gaze unwavering as she met Liam's piercing stare. "My name is Elena Petrov," she began, her voice steady, as if delivering a meticulously prepared presentation. "And Lily," she paused, her eyes softening as she looked at the 2 girls, "are the product of a very specific, highly confidential project I was involved in almost 7 years ago." Liam leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table, his posture radiating skepticism. "A project? What kind of project?" A project, Elena explained, her voice gaining a scientific precision, focused on advanced genetic engineering and fertility. We sought to understand the potential of combining specific genetic markers to create individuals with heightened cognitive abilities, accelerated development, and enhanced resilience. It was about pushing the boundaries of human potential. Liam's mind, accustomed to dissecting complex data, began to connect fragmented pieces. Thorne had, years ago, subtly invested in a nascent bioengineering startup. He hadn't paid much attention to it then, seeing it as a minor, long-term speculative venture. But the details now clicked with an alarming clarity. Part of this project, Elena continued, her voice dropping slightly, as if sharing the profound secret, involved identifying ideal genetic donors, individuals with exceptional intellect, robust health, and a strong genetic lineage. It was a rigorous, anonymous process, conducted through a series of highly secure, discrete screenings. You, Liam, were identified as one such ideal candidate. Liam's jaw tightened. Anonymous? Discreet? I was never contacted. I never gave my consent. His voice, though controlled, carried an undercurrent of raw anger. The idea of his very essence being used without his knowledge, without his permission, was an affront to everything he stood for. He was a man who controlled his destiny, not one whose fundamental building blocks were appropriated. Elena sighed, a soft, weary sound. That's where the complications and the forgotten past come in. You were contacted, Liam, and you did give your consent. Not just consent, but willing participation. We had a deeper connection than you recall. Her eyes met his, and in their depths, he saw not just challenge, but a flicker of a shared memory, a pain that seemed to resonate in the empty chambers of his own heart. Before Thorne became your entire universe, before the incident that altered so much, you were a different man, Liam. A brilliant, passionate student. And I was part of your life, a very significant part. The revelation hit Liam like a physical blow. The incident? He whispered, his voice barely audible. The term was familiar, the vague explanation given for his prolonged absence from the public eye years ago, brushed off as a minor health setback. But now, it resonated with a darker, more sinister undertone. He remembered the blankness after that period, the feeling of restarting his life, building his empire with a laser focus, as if everything before was simply a prelude, a necessary void. Elena leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper, her eyes sweeping the cafe to ensure no one was listening. After you completed the genetic contribution, Liam, something happened, Liam. Not to the project, but to you. A targeted attack. It was designed to look like an accident, a random act of violence, but it was meticulously planned. Someone wanted you out of the picture, permanently, or at least incapacitated. You survived, but with a severe traumatic brain injury. And with it, a profound selective amnesia. You lost the memories of that period of your life entirely. Of me. Of us. She paused, her gaze unwavering, her expression a mixture of profound sorrow and steely resolve. When you resurfaced, transformed into the formidable Liam Thorne the world knows today, I knew I couldn't approach you, not then. The forces behind that attack were still active, still dangerous. Revealing Lily and Daisy would have put their lives and yours in unimaginable peril. I had to protect them. I had to disappear. But I always knew the day would come when they would seek you out. Their instincts, they're remarkably strong. They feel your presence, Liam. They always have. The air in the cafe seemed to thicken, the ambient sounds fading into a distant hum. Liam felt as if a dam had broken within him, not a flood of clear memories, but a torrent of raw, unidentifiable emotions, a crushing sense of loss, a gnawing confusion, a profound sense of injustice. The meticulously constructed walls of his self-imposed solitude crumbled, revealing a gaping void. These children, these innocent echoes of a life he couldn't recall, were the undeniable proof of a past stolen, a love erased. And the woman before him, Elena, was not just a stranger with an unbelievable story, but a survivor of a shared nightmare, a silent guardian of the truth. The battle for his present had just begun, but the true war, the one to reclaim his lost past, had been raging in the shadows all along. He looked at Lily and Daisy, their eyes mirroring his own, and a single, chilling question solidified in his mind. Who wanted him to forget, and why? The comfortable facade of his life had shattered, replaced by a terrifying, yet undeniably real family. The soft clatter of porcelain and the distant hum of city traffic seemed to recede, leaving Liam Thorne suspended in a surreal bubble within the quiet cafe. Elena Petrov's words had not merely shattered his composure, they had splintered the very bedrock of his identity. He, Liam Thorne, the meticulous architect of his own destiny, had been living a lie, a meticulously crafted illusion built on a foundation of forgotten pain and stolen time. His gaze flickered from Elena's resolute face to the two small figures beside her. Lily and Daisy, oblivious to the storm raging within him, were giggling softly over a shared pastry, their innocent joy a stark, heartbreaking contrast to the bitter truth unfolding. Lily, with her keen, intelligent eyes that mirrored Liam's own steel-gray intensity, and Daisy, whose every movement was a burst of sunshine, a tender spirit untainted by the world's cruelties. How could he not have known? How could a man so consumed by control have been so utterly blind to something so profoundly his own? An attack. Liam finally managed, his voice a gravelly whisper, barely recognizable as his own. A selective amnesia. Who would do such a thing? The question was a low growl, born not just of confusion, but of a simmering rage. He, Liam Thorne, did not endure attacks. He orchestrated them. Elena's gaze hardened, losing its gentle melancholy and gaining an edge of tempered steel. "The name, you know, is the Syndicate," she began, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, forcing Liam to lean in. Though their true identity is far more insidious. They are not merely rivals, Liam. They are a shadowy consortium of power brokers, oligarchs, and disillusioned former intelligence operatives. Their influence permeates every level of global finance and technology, like a cancerous growth within the very system you now dominate. Liam scoffed, a dry, humorless sound. A shadowy consortium? This sounds like a cheap spy novel, Elena. Does it? She retorted, her eyes flashing, a flicker of defiance Liam found oddly compelling. Do you truly believe, given the cutthroat world you inhabit, that your meteoric rise was purely organic? That no one sought to manipulate, to eliminate, to control? She leaned closer, her voice now a sharp, intimate blade. They saw your potential, Liam. Even then, as a brilliant, idealistic young student, you were a threat. Your groundbreaking research, your uncorrupted vision for technological advancement, it threatened their archaic control over the global economy. They couldn't buy you, they couldn't corrupt you, so they decided to eliminate the person you were and mold the person you became. A cold dread seeped into Liam's bones. The ambition that had fueled his every waking moment, the relentless drive to build Thorne into an unassailable empire, suddenly felt less like his own innate fire and more like a carefully engineered program. Was he merely a pawn, a puppet dancing to a forgotten tune? The thought was anathema to his very being. They staged the accident as a minor health setback, Elena continued, her voice weaving a chilling tapestry of his past. But it was a sophisticated neurotoxin, designed to specifically target and suppress memories from a certain period. The doctors, the therapists, they were all compromised or simply unwitting tools in a grander scheme. They guided your recovery, subtly shaping your focus, pushing you towards a narrow. Liam's mind reeled. He remembered the blankness, the strange emptiness after his recovery, the singular, almost obsessive drive to build Thorntech. It had felt like a rebirth, a sharpening of purpose. Now, it felt like a betrayal, a puppet on strings he hadn't known existed. He felt a phantom pain behind his eyes, a sensation of suppressed knowledge fighting to break free. And us? Liam asked, his voice strained, a raw vulnerability seeping through his carefully constructed facade. You said we had a deeper connection. He watched her, searching her eyes for an answer, for a flicker of something that would resonate with the void in his soul. Elena's gaze softened, a profound sadness clouding her features. We met at university. You were a physics prodigy. I was deep in genetics. We were drawn to each other by a shared hunger for knowledge, a desire to push boundaries. We spent countless nights debating theories, dreaming of a future where technology served humanity, not exploited it. A wistful smile touched her lips, a bittersweet memory playing across her features. You were different then, Liam. Less hardened, more open, more human. You believed in a better world, and you wanted to build it with your own hands. She took a deep, shuddering breath. We fell in love, Liam. A fierce, all-consuming love that defied the sterile halls of academia. Lily and Daisy, they were born of that love. We had dreams, plans. We were going to change the world together. Her voice caught, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek, a pearl of sorrow that stood in stark contrast to the ruthless world Liam now commanded. But then, the accident happened. The day after we found out I was pregnant, they took everything from us. They took you from me. They took away the father of my children before he even knew they existed. The weight of her words, the raw emotion in her voice, struck Liam with the force of a physical blow. He saw the years of solitary struggle in her eyes, the untold sacrifices, the silent courage she had shown protecting their daughters from a world that had forgotten their father. He had lived a life of pampered luxury, blind to the true cost of his amnesia, while she had battled dragons in the shadows, clinging to the fragments of a shared dream. The contrast between his sterile, ordered existence and her tumultuous, defiant journey was a chasm of guilt and profound regret. A flicker, a sound, not a memory, but a sensation. The warmth of a hand, smaller than his, fitting perfectly within his own. A melody, light and ethereal, like a lullaby sung under a moonlit sky. A faint, sweet scent, like spring blossoms. They were fragmented, ethereal, like dust motes in a sunbeam, but they were there. Traces of a life, a love, a happiness he couldn't access. "Why tell me now?" Liam asked, his voice raw, his eyes burning with a newfound intensity. The initial anger had given way to a desperate hunger for the truth, for the missing pieces of himself. Elena's gaze sharpened, her sorrow replaced by an urgent, almost desperate plea. Because they're closing in, Liam. The syndicate. They know about Lily and Daisy. They always knew. They just waited for the opportune moment, for a weakness, to use them as leverage against you. Your recent acquisition bids, your expansion into new, disruptive technologies, you're threatening their carefully constructed empire again. And this time, they won't settle for memory loss. They will eliminate you and anyone you care about. That's why I finally came out of hiding, because the danger to our daughters is too great to bear alone. They are coming for you, Liam, and now they will come for our girls. The final words hung in the air, a chilling prophecy. Liam looked at Lily and Daisy, who had stopped eating their pastry and were now watching him with wide, curious eyes, sensing the unspoken tension. They were the key, the reason for his stolen past, and the target of a present danger. His corporate empire, once his sole purpose, now felt like a fragile shield against an unseen enemy. He wasn't just fighting for his company, or even for his life. He was fighting for the very fabric of a family he had just found. A family whose existence was a testament to a love he couldn't remember, but whose presence now burned brighter than any ambition. The game had changed. The pieces were now on the board, and Liam Thorne, the man who controlled all, realized with a terrifying clarity that he was merely a pawn, caught in a battle he hadn't known he was fighting. And the war for his lost past and their shared future had just begun. The cafe had long since emptied, its soft glow now merely a distant memory as the city lights began to puncture the twilight. Liam Thorne sat in the cavernous silence of his penthouse living room, the panoramic view of Hanoi's glittering skyline, a mocking tableau of the ordered world he once believed he commanded. Elena had left, with Lily and Daisy, promising to return the following day, leaving him alone with the shattering fragments of his past. The silence, once his sanctuary, was now a tormentor. Every echo in the vast space seemed to whisper Elena's words. They wanted you out of the picture. They shaped the person you became. They know about Lily and Daisy. He paced, a restless tiger in a gilded cage. His meticulously organized mind, usually a fortress of logic, was under siege. The abstract concepts of corporate takeovers and market strategies seemed insignificant, almost childish, compared to the chilling reality of a stolen life and a family he never knew he had. He remembered the aftermath of the incident, a blurry period of disorientation, of doctors with carefully neutral expressions, of endless physical therapy. He dismissed the nagging sense of a blank slate, attributing it to the trauma. Now, it was a gaping wound, bleeding out the truth. He closed his eyes, forcing himself to dredge the murky depths of his subconscious. Glimmers, like shards of shattered glass, flickered. A laugh, soft and melodious. The scent of rain-soaked earth. A fleeting image of a sun-drenched laboratory, filled with the hum of machinery and the vibrant energy of intellectual discovery. And Elena. Not the weary, resolute woman from the cafe, but a younger, radiant version, her eyes sparkling with shared dreams. His phone, a beacon of his current power, felt heavy in his hand. He scrolled through his contacts, past names of powerful executives and political figures, until he found the one he sought. Dr. Eris Thorne. His uncle. The man who had taken him in after the incident, who had guided his recovery, who had instilled in him the relentless drive that forged Thorntech. Eris was a man of immense influence, a shadow figure who rarely emerged from his vast, secluded estate, preferring to pull strings from behind the scenes. He was the family he knew, the anchor to his current reality. A cold certainty settled in Liam's gut. Eris would have answers. He had to. He was the one who had arranged Liam's post-incident care, who had vouched for the medical reports. If anyone knew about a sophisticated neurotoxin, about a meticulously planned attack, it would be Eris. The next morning, Liam arranged for a private meeting with Eris at his sprawling, isolated estate, a fortress of old money and unspoken power. The air there was always heavy with the scent of polished wood and aged ambition. As Liam drove through the winding, tree-lined path, a chilling thought emerged. The syndicate's influence was vast. Could it have reached even here? Eris Thorne, a man whose silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes belied his advanced age, greeted Liam in his study. The room was a museum of ancient artifacts and modern surveillance equipment, a potent symbol of Eris's dual nature. "Liam, to what do I owe this unscheduled visit?" Eris's voice was smooth as aged whiskey, laced with an undertone of steel. There was no warmth, only calculated politeness. Liam laid it bare. He spoke of Elena, of Lily and Daisy, of the genetic project, and the terrifying revelation of his selective amnesia. He watched Eris's face like a hawk, searching for any flicker of surprise, any tell. But Eris remained an unreadable mask. His expression was a study in controlled neutrality, a master of dissimulation. "An intriguing tale, Liam," Eris finally said, his fingers steepled under his chin. "A fascinating delusion, perhaps, born from stress. The incident, it was a profound trauma. The mind can play tricks." "Tricks?" Liam's voice rose, edged with a dangerous fury. "My daughters, Eris, my children are not a trick. And Elena, she knows things about the syndicate, about an attack designed to alter me." Eris leaned back, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. "The syndicate is a bogeyman story, Liam, a convenient scapegoat for failures. As for Elena, a desperate woman, perhaps, seeking to exploit a vulnerable billionaire. It's a common enough tale." His eyes, usually piercing, seemed to glaze over slightly, as if reciting a pre-programmed script. But the emptiness in Eris's eyes, the complete lack of genuine concern, struck Liam with a cold, undeniable certainty. It wasn't just a lack of surprise, it was a practiced indifference. It was the calm of a man who already knew. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying precision, a puzzle whose final, devastating image was suddenly clear. "You knew," Liam whispered, his voice trembling with a disbelief that warred with a crushing realization. "You knew about Elena, about Lily and Daisy. You knew about the attack. You were a part of it." The accusations hung in the air, heavy with betrayal. Eris's mask finally slipped, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk replacing his neutrality. "My dear Liam," he purred, his voice losing its polished edge and gaining a sinister, almost reptilian quality. "You were a prodigy. Brilliant, yes, but dangerously idealistic. You pursued projects, associations that would have utterly destabilized our interests. Your love for Elena, your naive vision for Thorntech, it was a weakness, a liability." Liam felt as if the ground had been ripped out from under him. "You orchestrated it?" he breathed, the words tasting like ash. "You had me attacked? My own uncle?" "A necessary restructuring, my boy," Eris said, rising from his chair and walking towards the vast window, his back to Liam. The words were delivered with the casualness of discussing a market correction. "You were reborn, Liam, sharpened, focused, a perfect weapon. I honed you. I molded you into the ruthless, efficient machine you are today. Thorntech, under your command, became precisely what it needed to be, a lever of immense power, perfectly aligned with our agenda. He turned, his eyes glinting with a cold triumph. The Syndicate, they are not external. They are the hidden hand, the true power behind the throne. And I, Liam, am their orchestrator, their architect, and yours. The air left Liam's lungs in a ragged gasp. The sheer audacity, the chilling casualness of the confession was a blow more devastating than any physical attack. He wasn't just betrayed. He was a fabricated construct, a pawn in a game far grander and more sinister than he could have ever conceived. His entire adult life, his very identity, was a lie built by his own family. And Lily and Daisy? Liam asked, his voice raw, laced with an anguishing mixture of rage and terror. Eris finally allowed himself a full, chilling smile. Ah, the children. A delightful, if inconvenient, loose end. Their existence was a risk, of course. Elena was quite resilient. But now that they have served their purpose in awakening you, Liam, they have become a liability. A final, definitive link to the past we painstakingly erased. And loose ends, my dear nephew, are always tied up. A profound silence descended, broken only by the rapid drumming of Liam's heart against his ribs. He felt a primal instinct surge through him, a protective fury so intense it burned away the years of engineered detachment. He wasn't a CEO anymore. He was a father, a man whose family... The opulent study, once a symbol of Eris Thorne's absolute dominion, now felt like a battlefield. The air, heavy with the stench of betrayal and the metallic tang of fear, crackled with unspoken threats. Liam Thorne, the meticulously crafted CEO, stood stripped bare, not by his clothes, but by the shattering truth of his past. Eris, his uncle and tormentor, watched him with the smug satisfaction of a puppeteer admiring his masterpiece. You won't touch them. Liam's voice was low, a rumble of thunder before a storm. The words were not a plea, but a vow, forged in the white-hot crucible of newfound fatherhood. The corporate titan was gone, replaced by a primal, protective force. Lily, Daisy, Elena, you will not lay a hand on them. Eris merely chuckled, a dry, grating sound. Bold words, Liam, but you are in my house, surrounded by my people. Your precious girls are already being handled. A simple, regrettable accident, perhaps. A tragic disappearance. The media will grieve for a week, and then they will forget. Just as you forgot. A jolt, like an electric current, coursed through Liam. Kian, his driver, the man who had been with him for years, whose loyalty he had never questioned. Had Kian been compromised? The thought was a chilling realization that the circle of betrayal extended even to his most trusted inner sanctum. A sense of urgency, cold and relentless, seized him. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a rescue mission. You underestimate me, Eris, Liam retorted, his voice regaining its steel, but now infused with a desperate edge. You made me, yes, but you also made me adaptable, ruthless. I learned from the best, didn't I? He moved subtly, his hand inching towards a heavy, ornate bronze letter opener on Eris's desk. It was an antique, seemingly harmless, yet sharp enough to be a formidable weapon in skilled hands. Just as his fingers brushed the cold metal, the door burst open. Not Eris's men, but Elena. Her eyes, usually so composed, were wild with fear and determination. Behind her, Kian stood, his face pale,
his loyalty to Liam clear in his desperate expression. "They're coming for them, Liam," Elena cried, her voice strained. "Kian warned me. They've found our hiding place." Eris's smug smile vanished, replaced by a flicker of annoyance. "Kian, you fool! You dared to defy me?" "My loyalty is to Mr. Thorne, sir, not to your shadows." Liam's heart surged with a strange mix of relief and renewed fury. Kian's betrayal was a calculated risk, a double cross that had bought them precious seconds. "Elena, take the girls. Kian, get them out of here, anywhere safe. Go." Chaos erupted. Two of Eris's hulking bodyguards, emerging from the shadows, lunged for Elena. Kian, surprisingly agile, intercepted them, buying Elena a crucial moment to turn and bolt from the study. Liam, no longer the detached CEO, but a man fighting for his life, snatched the letter opener. The bronze gleamed, reflecting the cold ferocity in his eyes.
He parried a guard's clumsy swing, the unexpected ferocity of his counterattack sending the man stumbling. Years of intense martial arts training, a hobby he'd indulged in to manage stress, now surged to the forefront, a forgotten skill resurrected by desperate need. "You think you can stop me?" Liam snarled at Eris, his voice a raw, primal roar. He moved with a speed that belied his corporate persona, a whirlwind of calculated strikes and evasive maneuvers. The study became a dance of death, the elegant furniture serving as both obstacle and weapon. One bodyguard crumpled, the other hesitated, unnerved by the CEO's unexpected ferocity. Eris, his face contorted with cold fury, pulled a small silver pistol from his desk drawer. "Fool! You could have had it all! Power, control. Now you throw it away for sentimentality?" Liam lunged, a blur of motion. The pistol discharged, the shot echoing like a clap of thunder. But Liam was already there, his hand clamping down on Eris's wrist, twisting. The old man cried out, dropping the weapon. Liam, his chest heaving, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs, had Eris pinned against his grand mahogany desk. The letter opener, now a symbol of his unleashed rage, pressed against Eris's throat. "You took everything," Liam hissed, his voice laced with the bitterness of years of stolen truth. "My memories, my family, my life. You molded me into a monster, Eris, but you failed. You forgot that even a monster can learn to love." "You won't do it," Eris rasped, his eyes wide with a fear Liam had never seen there before. "You're not a killer." "No," Liam snarled, pressing the blade just enough to draw a bead of blood. "But I will burn your empire to the ground. Every dark secret, every corrupted deal, every puppet string you've pulled. I will expose you. I will dismantle the syndicate, brick by bloody brick, starting with you." Just then, the grand doors to the study burst open again. Not Eris's reinforcements, but a team of specialized police led by a no-nonsense inspector. "Thorne," the inspector commanded, his weapon trained on Liam. Liam didn't hesitate. He knew the police wouldn't be here without Elena's ingenuity, or perhaps Kian's quick thinking. He dropped the letter opener, allowing the officers to secure Eris and his remaining bodyguard. He met the inspector's gaze, his eyes still burning with the residual heat of his fury, but now tempered with a clear purpose. "I have information, Inspector, about a criminal organization operating at the highest levels, and about an assassination attempt that took place 7 years ago, disguised as an accident." He glanced at Eris, whose face had gone ashen. "Starting with him."
The following weeks were a whirlwind of investigations, interrogations, and revelations that sent shockwaves through the global corporate world. Liam, with Elena's meticulous records and his own fragmented memories, worked tirelessly with the authorities. The syndicate, long an untouchable ghost, began to unravel under the relentless onslaught of truth. Aris Thorne, once a shadowy puppet master, was exposed as a central figure, his vast empire a front for illicit dealings and power manipulation. The media, initially skeptical, was quickly overwhelmed by undeniable evidence: hidden accounts, leaked documents, and testimonies from former syndicate operatives who, seeing their network crumble, sought clemency. Thorne Tech, once a symbol of ruthless ambition, became a beacon of transparency, purged of its dark influences under Liam's unyielding hand. But the true battle was not fought in boardrooms or courtrooms. It was fought in Liam's heart. He spent every spare moment with Lily and Daisy, tentatively bridging the chasm of lost time. He learned their favorite colors, their silly songs, the way Daisy hummed when she was happy, and Lily's thoughtful silence when she was pondering something profound.
He learned to differentiate their giggles, to soothe their fears. Each interaction was a slow, deliberate stitch, mending the torn fabric of his soul. He held their small hands, the warmth of their touch a stark contrast to the cold isolation that had defined his life for so long. He watched them play, their laughter echoing through his previously sterile penthouse, transforming it from a monument of success into a home. With Elena, the path was more complex. The ghost of a past love, a love he couldn't fully recall, hung between them. Yet there was a profound understanding, a shared trauma that bound them. They spoke for hours, not just about the syndicate, but about their lost years, about the dreams they had once shared. Elena, now free from the constant threat, began to reclaim her own life, her brilliance as a geneticist resurfacing. They were rebuilding, brick by painful brick, not just a family, but a connection that transcended memory. The love wasn't a sudden, passionate flame, but a steady, growing ember, fueled by respect, shared purpose, and the undeniable bond of their children. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Liam sat on the floor of his living room, watching Lily and Daisy building a towering structure of colorful blocks. Daisy tumbled, and Lily, with a wisdom beyond her years, immediately helped her up, reassuring her with a gentle pat. Liam felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling he now recognized as pure, unadulterated happiness. Elena joined him, sitting beside him, her hand gently brushing his arm. "They're incredible," Liam murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Elena smiled, a genuine, untroubled smile that illuminated her whole face. "They always have been." He turned to her, his steel-gray eyes, once cold and guarded, now filled with a vulnerability he hadn't known he possessed. "I still don't remember everything, Elena. The details, they're fragmented. But I feel it. I feel us. I feel them. It's like a melody I once knew, finally starting to play again." Elena squeezed his arm. "Memory isn't just about facts, Liam. It's about connection. And we have that now. A future to build, stronger than any past that was stolen." The fight against the syndicate was far from over, but the war for Liam's soul had been won. He was no longer a puppet, no longer a hollow vessel of engineered ambition. He was Liam Thorne, CEO, yes, but more importantly, a father, a partner, a man reconnected to his humanity. The unspoken call from two innocent voices had shattered his silent world, not to destroy it, but to rebuild it, piece by beautiful piece, into a harmony he had never dared to dream of. The echoes of a forgotten past would always linger,
like scars on a resilient heart, but they were now interwoven with the vibrant, undeniable melody of a new, unbroken chord. A final word to our valued audience. And so, we conclude the compelling journey of the Unspoken Call. This story, we hope, has resonated deeply, offering more than just thrilling suspense. It explores the profound power of human connection, the resilience of memory, even when forgotten, and the enduring strength of family. Liam's transformation teaches us that even in the darkest shadows of betrayal, hope can bloom, and that embracing our authentic selves, even the parts we've lost, is the truest path to fulfillment. Thank you for listening, for feeling, for sharing in this journey. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment with your thoughts, hit that like button, and subscribe to our channel for more tales that challenge and inspire. Your engagement makes these stories possible. Thank you.